All right, so for today's video, we are going to get quiet with things. We're going to test out and compare some different practice mutes and kind of see what they sound like and what their characteristics are. And then at the very end, I'll give you my recommendations for what I like to use. So, of the practice mutes here, we have three different mutes from Rejano Mutes, co-run by David Rejano, the principal trombonist of the LA Philharmonic. We have a bass, a tenor, and an alto. These are 3D printed, made of high quality resin. They're fun. We also have a Dennis Wick practice mute. We have an Okura mute from Japan. We have a Best Brass mute, which looks a lot like the Dylan's mutes also. We have in the back here an old Yamaha silent brass system. This is like a first generation system. They've made others since then that kind of are smaller and stick in a bell that are pretty nice. And for fun, we also have this Trumcor Super Stealth mute. While it's not necessarily a practice mute, it does do a lot of quiet, nice things to the sound. So let's start over here. Best Brass practice mute. You'll see a lot of these around. Let's feel what it's like with the trombone non-muted to get kind of a basis for intonation and response. We can go with those, and then we'll try out a couple of low notes also. Just to see what that's like in that register. So let's try the same thing out now with the Best Brass mute. As we get down to the very lowest notes, it gets a little bit more pushback. But, you're going to have sacrifices no matter what you do with a practice mute. Solid. I think it's pretty good across the board. It doesn't mess with intonation too much. It fits in the bell really nicely to the point of where you can't even really see it, In fact, I know that I've gone on stage once or twice and forgotten this is in the bell, which is always a fun experience when you go to play your first note. I've seen it happen to others as well. It's a good practice mute. Then we have the Okura mutes from Japan, which I'm a little bit less familiar with. Again, they fit in the bell really nicely. It's kind of flush with the bell. Comes out a little bit more than the Best Brass mute, but still, let's see how it sounds. Okay, first thing off the bat, it has this hollow ringing sound to it. That's the best way I can describe it. There's like a bit, it feels like some airs being forced out of it that you could hear, especially in the low register. It almost sounds like a little bit of a whistle. Let's compare that again to the Best Brass mute, which again doesn't have a drilled hole in it. The Okura mute kind of has a secondary sibilant sound to it. It's a lot of S's. Some good alliteration though. And the intonation in the highest register felt like it went a little bit flat. It doesn't quite want to have the same freedom in that top register. But it's an interesting sound sonically for composition. Like if you wanted to have a really unique texture and you want to have a piece that's supported using a practice mute, which again has to be very quiet if you're going to use a practice mute as a composer, like quietest of clarinet playing quiet. Not like, don't use these to balance the trombone with other instruments, just use them for true quiet effects. But that extra sibilance could be kind of a neat compositional element. Okay, so that's the Okura brass mute. Let's check out the Dennis Wick. It's got a nice fun red color, Ferrari of practice mutes. Again, it sits pretty flush with the bell. Maybe it comes out just a little bit further than the Okura, but if it does, it would still fit in the case okay. All the mutes that we've done so far will pretty much fit in any case. It's got a nice look to it. It's kind of fun. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, first impression for me. This doesn't have a drilled hole in it. It's flat. It felt the hardest to center and had kind of the widest slots between partials. The intonation felt like it suffered a little bit compared to the other two, and it felt like it had kind of a louder sound. The feedback to me as a player definitely felt louder. So this might not be like the best practice mute for like practicing in an airport like I like to use my practice for or something like that. But you know, that extra little bit of give that you have to it dynamically. Again, I'm giving this amount of effort. Like a pretty solid orchestral mezzo forte-ish effort. Let's try it again, the Okura. Yeah, it feels a little softer to me. And on the best brass, yeah. Another factor for some people might be this has the biggest propensity for like mute dings and stuff like that. The Okura mute having this big rubber tip, a lot less of that. And the Wick mute with these rubber stoppers here, there's a little bit of hitting, but it stops pretty quickly. And you have to watch out for this when you're taking the mute in or pulling it out if you're used to twisting. All right. Finally, oh no, 3 more. Sorry, I'm losing track. Let's check out the Yamaha first generation silent brass. This is cool. It has a pickup, which is really nice. It used to have this little module that let you put on headphones and listen to different reverb settings, like back to yourself. So if you're practicing in a small room, you want to pretend you're in a bigger room, you just put on the headphones and do a little pickup to that. I don't have that tech anymore. I've had this since high school, so it survived a lot of moves, but not everything survived the moves. As you can tell, it doesn't sit flush with the bell. You're going to want to bring an extra bag to carry this. Might fit in like a Marcus Bona case where they have that little extra gap between the bell and the end of the case. I'm not sure about that though. I don't have one of those to test out. Let's see how these old first generation silent brasses sound though. Kind of the hardest to play the pedal tones, and it's kind of hardest for me to hear intonation up there. It's also pretty bell heavy because you know it's an old mute. It's been around for decades now, and it's like just got a little bit of weight to it. So if you don't like that extra weight at the front of the bell, be careful picking up one of these. Yamaha does make an in-bell option. By in-bell, I mean like it sits flush with the bell like the other mutes we've tried so far. That also has all the same pickup and settings. I'd be curious to try the new generation ones. I've heard some pretty good things about them. And the last dedicated practice mute we have are these Rejano practice mutes. Rejano. I'm not sure. I'm never very good at pronouncing things anyway. Let's try it out. It doesn't sit flush with the bell. Kind of comes out a little bit in this dome. But it's fit in every case I've used it, so it doesn't get in the way. of fitting in a case. There's not enough of a bubble for it to be a problem yet. So, intonation feels good on this. It feels like it's maybe a little louder than the Okura or Best Brass, but maybe not as loud as the Wick. It feels pretty analogous to the silent brass mute back here. The intonation on that, well, I'll just say, that's my favorite practice mute. The intonation and the blow of air on it feels really nice. It feels the most like I'm playing my regular trombone as possible, non-muted trombone. It's the one I bring with me. I practice in airports, wherever I need to, without bothering people. It's quiet enough for that. And then an interesting mute that we have is the Trumcor. This is called their Super Stealth mute. Even says it, Super Stealth. Yep, it's pretty neat. And it gets a nice sound. So it's not a dedicated practice mute. It doesn't sit flush in the bell, as you could tell. You're gonna need to bring an extra thing for it. It's got these holes in it, but it's also got padding inside it, which is kind of nice. Let's see what it's like. All right, so with this, we're going for more of a diffuse bucket-like sound, but with the dynamics even more suppressed. I would put it halfway in between a bucket mute and a practice mute. It gets a fairly cool sound and timbre, and I've liked it a lot. It projects a little better than the practice mutes, so you don't have to worry as much about being covered as you normally do with the practice mute, because they get covered by almost anything except for the quietest of sounds. And with that, you have a little bit more play to kind of project. Alex Temple, the composer, wrote a piece, All We Could See from the Windows Was Water, for myself and Anne Rainwater, my pianist duo partner. And she used that mute to great effect in that piece. Also reminding myself right now, I have one of these new salt shaker mutes. They're kind of fun. Say salt shaker on them. You can get them in a variety of different colors. And this is a great bucket mute or practice mute alternative. They come with these foam pads inside them that you can kind of adjust. So this isn't a dedicated practice mute as well, but let's see what it's like on a couple of different settings. Sits pretty flush in the bell. Comes out a little bit more than some of the dedicated practice mutes. You can get them in different colors. That's always a nice option. Okay, so you're going to get something that's a little bit brighter than the Trumcor Super Stealth mute if you put no padding in it. What's really nice about this is if you put the padding in sideways, like this, close it back up, you get a really nice bucket mute alternative in a smaller package than the large bucket mutes tend to be. There we go. Let's see what it's like as kind of a quasi bucket mute, quasi practice mute. See, not so bad. Good bucket mute alternative. Support small business, all that too. It's a good thing to do. And if we take out this felt and we kind of put it flush in, so it kind of it doesn't stand up and down, but it kind of covers the whole. Let's see what it sounds like then. I think that's the closest that we get to kind of a practice mute with this. It also comes with some additional padding, so you could do whatever you like with it when you find the setting that you like. So they're kind of cool. I like them for the versatility. I wouldn't use them specifically as a practice mute. Also, with these larger mutes and smaller Rejano practice mutes, I quickly wanted to demonstrate what they're like for different instruments. This is my bass trombone. Bell got a little crunched in the move, so I'm a little sad about that, but it'll get fixed. But let's see what the Rejano practice mute. It's a large one. Oh, the last thing about the Rejano practice mute. The one thing I have with it is being 3D printed and being polymer, it can feel a little slippery. And if it falls, you have to watch out because they can kind of split open. This is actually my second one of them that I've purchased so far because of that reason. Oh, let's see what the, oh, this one's large. Let's see what this is like without first. Excuse my intonation. Let's see what it's like with the practice mute in it on bass. Again, it does a very good job of staying quiet, and the blow feels pretty similar to what it's going to feel like without the mute in. More so than most other practice mutes I've tried, which I really enjoy. And for the small one, let's compare what the Rejano practice mute sounds like on an alto trombone. Ta-da! The most useful notes on alto trombone, I know, yeah. Let's see what it's like with the practice mute. Low register goes kind of sharp. I noticed that immediately. Still, the low feels kind of nice. So while the low register doesn't feel as good on the Rejano mute as it typically feels on the tenor, it still does a good enough job. And so much of the alto mute, so much of the alto trombone stays in the high register, you don't have to worry about it. Some other mutes fit inside. Let's see what they're quickly like. The Wick mute feels pretty nice in the alto trombone bell. And maybe let's try this salt shaker mute. I believe the felt is still all the way in. So with the felt all the way in, it's kind of hard to control which pitch you're producing. But that happens. And then it's kind of a pain to take apart. So we're just going to test that out. Other mutes will also fit inside the alto as well as the tenor, but you might have a hard time keeping them in the case. Here's the Okura. That kind of has a better intonation response in the low register, which is nice. And finally, we'll try out the best brass mute on alto. Doesn't want to stick. Let's not try it. All right, so that's practice mutes. That's a little quick overview. I think we tried out a few different types, and that gives you an idea of either what to do for your practice or what to do as a composer if you're looking for this type of effect. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy.